Right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Daniela Penna. I am the head of the Department of Languages and Cultures, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the final panel discussion entitled Shaping Futures for Modern Languages in Higher Education. I should like now to briefly introduce to you our distinguished guests. I'll start with Professor Emma Cayley. She's Professor of Medieval French at the University of Leeds. She's head of the School of Modern Languages at the university and the new chair of the University Council of Modern Languages. Gianfranco Conti is here with us again. He's a visiting fellow at the University of Reading and the founder of the Language Gym. He's the author of numerous books that have helped shape language teaching in the recent years for primary and secondary education. Then I should like to introduce to you Dr. Ana de Medeiros. She's the director of the Modern Language Centre at King's College, London, and vice chair of the Association of University Language Communities. And I will proceed with colleague and friend, Professor Federico Faloppa, Professor of Italian Studies and Linguistics, the Director of the MA Migration International Intercultural Studies at University of Reading. Federico is the author of many monographs, too many perhaps to mention them here. I should like to highlight the fact that Federico is an advisor on the EU Task Force on Hate Speech and also consultant for Amnesty in International Italy on matters of hate speech. And of course, Teresa MacKinnon, Open Educator, certified member of the Association for Learning Technology and Foundation Fellow of Warwick International Higher Education Academy. Thank you very much for joining us. And the brief was clear. The idea is that we open the floor with your 1 minute pitch or 1 or 2 minutes pitch on your vision of the future for education. And then we start with questions and hopefully a vibrant and lively discussion. So can I ask Emma to come forward virtually and let us hear about her views on the future or futures of modern languages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and thanks to Enza as well for inviting me. The 1 to 2 minutes is quite tricky. I'll do my best. I think it's fair to say, none of us here necessarily has all the answers, but we're just trying to ask the right questions in the right places, and none of us has all of the questions either, but hopefully if we can come together as a community, we'll eventually get there. I think I just wanted very quickly to explain a little bit about UCML, what it is and why it matters, and say a little bit about a couple of initiatives that UCML has been involved in and where those could go, and hopefully reach out to the community and possibly ask for help, or vice versa, ask for anything that we can help you with. So just in terms of the University Council of Modern Languages, which I know some of you will be familiar with, but possibly not everybody who's here, is essentially we're a body that monitors the health of the discipline, I would say. We gather a lot of data for the sector. I don't know if you might have come across the recent joint report that we put out with the British Academy, the granularity report on UCAS admissions data from 2012 to 2018, which was published this July. So the reason that I kind of mention that is partly because of that data gathering function, but also because I think one of the things that I've been very keen to do, both as vice chair for comms and now as new chair of UCML, still have a lot to learn, is to dispel an awful lot of the kind of doom and gloom stories about languages that we're reading all the time. So one of the, I think the results of that report was to show that actually, languages isn't in free fall, that there are positive stories to tell. And I think that's the one thing that I would say, that I think there is an awful lot of positivity here for the future if we can gather together as a community and pool our resources at all levels. So HE, primary, secondary, FE. I think so educating the media is really important, working on issues of recruitment and access. Another thing that I would mention, a sort of shout out to my predecessor in my role, Claire Garora, and her amazing project, the MFL mentoring project led at Cardiff, which was established in 2015. I'll put out some links later in case you're not aware of that. That is training undergraduates and postgraduates essentially to mentor year 8 and year 9 just before GCSE choices. And I just think that's a really amazing example of the kind of project that as an association I really want us to be getting more involved in, and kind of reaching out to the languages community to kind of expand that or extend that, and see how we can work together to do that. I've probably gone over my 2 minutes, but just really quickly, yes. There's a lot more work to do, I think, especially in articulating the disciplinary field of languages. So as a kind of disciplinary field, a connected field with many moving parts. And particularly for HE and languages departments, I think promoting cultural study alongside language learning. Just really quickly, the other thing that I would say is something that our accountant said to us the other day at Leeds. I think there's real value in thinking about how you can kind of articulate what the benefit is to a university of having a gold standard languages department beyond purely financial benefits. So that's something that I would like to kind of help the sector to work on in the future. Okay, I will leave it there.
Thank you, Emma.
What's more to say?
We need to be friends with the accountants, absolutely. Gianfranco Conti, you're next.
Am I? Okay,
Yes.
I didn't prepare for this one, but I'll tell you what from my specific point of view. I don't work in higher education, as you know. I work with secondary education and primary. That's the people I normally do CPD with. My specific vantage point is that one. So for me, the most important thing is, you know me, I'm into research and I'm into trying to understand how the brain works. To me, the most important thing would be to ensure that in primary and secondary, all the research that hopefully gets better and better at understanding how we best and more easily learn languages, that we can actually apply this research so that language learning becomes more and more brain friendly and affect friendly, which at the moment isn't, although we are on the right track. So I'm actually quite positive. Secondly, I think there should be much more involvement of universities with secondary, because you need to understand the nature of the beast, and I don't think there is enough. And if you want to ensure that these people want to be with you, they need to know what to expect, and you need to know who you are going to expect. So the third thing is, and this is interesting because of course I own a website, as you know. Today we've celebrated the 30th, the 3,000th school that subscribed. The most important thing really is trying to understand how we can, again, through science, cognitive load research and all that, try and find out how we can best implement online learning, because blended learning to me is the future. Blended learning is the future. You can't have just online learning. You can't just have classroom learning these days. You need to find a way to blend the two, so that you also cut down resources, which unfortunately we have to these days. We can't have too much contact time because, as you know, the budgets are unfortunately tight. So these three factors are, together with language exchanges and other things, but I think these three things, I'm optimistic about this, because research at the moment, we're in a good place. There's a huge movement towards wanting to apply research, but you need, as a university adapt to what these kids' academic aspirations needs are, because there is a dissonance between the two, which creates a sort of chasm in some respects, especially with state schools more than with independent schools.
Yes, that's often the case. Thank you very much, Gianfranco. Anna, you're next. You're on mute. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and lovely to hear all the other speakers. I guess I'd like to focus perhaps primarily on some work that the AHRC funded about 4 years ago with the Open World Initiatives. And the project that my university, along with other universities, was part of was called Language Acts and World Making. And it's a project that's ongoing. We're now in our 4th and final year with hundreds of events and support to lots of smaller research groups, etc. So it's been incredibly rich and very positive and life-affirming because of the interest from all parts of the sectors. And I couldn't agree more with what Gianfranco said just now. One of the projects we worked with was working with nurseries, primary, secondary schools, and really looking at all the transitions and trying to erase the barriers and seeing language learning really as a lifelong skill. It's not something you do in the classroom when you are 5 or when you're 7 or when you're 21. It is something that you should always be engaging with. And hopefully the way we teach language in a positive way allows students to feel and understand that languages are living and they live with them. So it's not just within, a book, or it's not just in preparation for an exam or for a certain level. And one of the projects that we were involved in and still are is called Gender Action. And we have hundreds of schools, nurseries, primary, secondary schools involved in that project. And the project is really not focused on languages as such, but focused on empowering students and schools to allow students to choose the subjects that they want, rather than the subjects that they think they should do, or the subject they think society expects them to do, or that their parents want them to do. And we feel that that is what's really necessary, because as long as we keep this dichotomy that languages are mainly done by girls and not by boys, we are only speaking to 50% of the population and 50% of our students. And we need to change that completely. There is no reason, of course, why girls are better at languages than boys, or boys are better at science than girls. So it's eradicating those barriers and enabling students from the very early start to really follow their heart's desire. And I think if they do that, then we will see the numbers of students enjoying engaging with languages increase incrementally. And I just wanted also, another reason why I feel very positive about the future of languages has to do with perhaps linking it to the topic of hospitality. And the theories of hospitality, and of course, if you study French literature, especially, it's inbuilt into the literature that we study, is that really we are both hosts and guests, all the time. And to be a good host and to be a good guest, you need to understand the other's language and you need to understand the other's culture. And so because we do that within societies, not just about studying something, to be a good citizen, to be a part of a wider society, we are meant to understand and to be interested in the language and the cultures of the others. And I think we are. I think, as Emma pointed out, we have to combat the negative media that focuses on this perception that here in the UK, we're a monolingual society. We aren't. Just look around at our students, our members of staff. Most of our universities welcome students and staff from over 100 countries, speaking, over 100 languages, being brought up in a variety of backgrounds. And I think we need to emphasize that, recognize that, and also celebrate, how international our environments are, and reach out to our communities. Our communities are also very international, and we need to celebrate that. So I feel very positive. I think we have it in us to combat the negative perceptions of language learning. And I also believe that students do want to learn languages if, as Gianfranco said, we find very good ways of teaching them so that they're pleasurable. It's a pleasurable subject.
Thank you very much, Anna. Federico, it's now your turn.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Yeah, I will probably echo what my colleagues have already said, but I think that modern languages, I'm very positive about modern languages, as Anna said. If we embrace challenges, but also if we try to challenge poles or concepts that look like poles, different poles, but actually we need to combine them. And I've got 6 of these poles that I want to show you or to talk to you about. So the first one is L1, L2, and that was already mentioned by Gianfranco. If we can show that teaching or learning L2 is going to be also beneficial to L1 in general, from a cognitive point of view, but also from a multilingual point of view, that's an operation that we need to push and we need to be very clear about. So L2 is not just an addition, but is actually part of the same kind of cognitive kind of process that we have when we talk about languages and abilities. So we need to be very clear about that. And by teaching and learning L2s, we do an amazing job in doing that and from a cognitive point of view. So thank you very much, Gianfranco, for introducing that concept. The second one, I think, is that the polarization is apparent, but between goals and needs. Probably we need to move from goal-oriented kind of approach to language teaching and learning languages, to needs, individual needs, speakers' needs, but also communities' needs, which means that we need to be very recipient and open to what communities need in terms of multilingualism and languages, not just in our universities, in our classes, but we are the agent of change, in terms of multilingualism. We need to show that very clearly again. So between needs and goals, I would go for needs, need-oriented kind of, attitude and approach. The third pole is actually policy. So policies and language policies are a key item for us. I think we can be very effective, and also we can also be influencing, at a policy level, not just in the UK, but in general, it's been said and it's going to be said about languages. So policies at local levels. So we need to talk to communities. We need to be seen as, again, agent of change by communities, not just our university, but I mean the Reading community, any place we are in. To be seen as, for them as an option, as a possibility to really work with a multicultural community and environment, but also, of course, at national level. So local and global, national and global policies, we can have a role there. And then when we talk about policies, of course, languages between mobility and citizenship. So we tend to teach languages, and we say that in open days and visit days. If you learn a language or 2 languages, you're going to be able to travel across the world. You're going to be able to live in other countries. Actually, we have to teach languages because, as I said, multilingualism is already in our societies, in the UK society, in our community society, which means that it's also a matter of citizenship. We need to create citizens, not just, travelers or, people that can move from one country to the next. And that's why we also need to embark the change given by and brought by migration as a phenomenon. So we also need to be, as hospitality was mentioned. Yeah, we also need to host multilingual communities, be better, and also to be agents of change also in that from that respect. And just to conclude, then global and local, we need to work together. We need to to pull together these 2 poles. It's not just a matter of globalization, to be global, so teaching and learning languages in order to show your approach to globalization, but also, as I said, we need to engage more and further with local communities. We need to show that multilingualism is there. We need to show that from a cognitive point of view, as I said, what we do is beneficial to everybody, to the whole society, not just to our students. And actually, we can influence policies at different levels, even from the local level, and then moving to the national and international and global level. And so, I would stop there, but I'm very positive if we embrace this challenge and change, and if we have, how could I say, if we are more visible as agent of change and hospitality and also multilingualism, in our society. We are not just providing a service or something that our students can bring with them when they travel across the world. We are beneficial to the whole community, starting from the local one.
Thank you, Federico. Thank you so much. Teresa.
Thank you, Daniela. It's lovely to hear all these voices. I have to say, at this point in my career, I was looking ahead 5-10 years when I should be well into my dotage. And perhaps that influences, because of the many cycles I've been through over the years, and I've worked on the exec of UCML, and obviously I've worked within secondary and higher education. My heart aches because I think of the UK context that we're talking about, and I hear and feel all this optimism and positivity, and then I look at that simple expression, modern languages, and I think, why are we still calling it modern? And why are we the MFL Twitterati, for example? Perhaps that's brought back into play because the government now is talking about Latin and increasing Latin teaching and spending money on that. I think as well about the use of resources and resourcing, and how many times I've been through certified courses that tell me that I am thriving in difficult times. There's a lot of pain actually set against this optimism. And a lot of that is because the messages that we have given over the years have not been listened to. And certainly over recent years, I'm beginning to believe that they're deliberately not being listened to. So however much we jump up and down, I'm a little bit more cynical about the future of modern languages. I want language teaching to still be available in the UK in 5 and 10 years' time. That's my sort of realism check, I think. I still want us to be there. All these wonderful people that we've listened to today and the people on this panel, I still want us to be there and be doing our bit to create a more coherent and happier society in the UK. I think that is still a big ask. We need what we offer to be fit for purpose. We need it to be available to all and not perhaps our traditional cohorts. So we need to examine who isn't in our courses and think about why they aren't. And I'm very drawn to Federico's comment there on needs, on how important it is for us to focus on needs rather than goals. I think we see very clearly from the various reports that we've had from Manchester University, from AULC and UCML, we see very clearly that young people still want to learn languages and they know that they're valuable. They're making strategic differences. Yes, Daniela, the foreign is important too. We should be losing that by now. They're making strategic choices at school level not to continue to A level. And that's because our schooling in the UK is very much focused on marks and assessment and strategic goals. So they're making the decision. Saw it with my own son many years ago. What's the point of doing languages? Actually, I will get a better job if I focus on these things. So there's a battle there to be won with business, because business plays down the importance of modern languages. And there's a huge battle now with the current government and the UK context, and that I think we have to be honest about.
Thank you,
Not
Teresa.
going to be easy.
No, it isn't. It's never easy, isn't it? So just to summarize, Emma's brought the UCML institutional perspective and illustrated the role that UCML has played and will continue to play in terms of advocacy for our diverse community. Gianfranco has illustrated the benefits of a research-informed pedagogical approach in the classroom to ensure that students essentially enjoy what they learn and take this enjoyment further, possibly even at higher education level. Ana has also illustrated the role that gender norms may play in conforming expectations. And so perhaps there is a nice link with Teresa's view that, the reality check that Teresa has illustrated, that it's a hard battle, that one that we must fight, but we need to be prepared also to see what the reasons behind the lack, the non-presence in our classrooms of certain demographics. Federico has provided has expanded on the notion of hospitality that was put forward by Ana, and looked at the role of languages in multilingual communities. And indeed, in both Ana's and Federico's talk, there is a clash between the current, it's not just the UK government, there are several governments in Europe and beyond that seem to believe in a pre-Babelic perception of language. It is just one and that's it, but we live in a very much Babelic and gloriously so reality. So the question that I would like to ask, and in a way, follows on with from Teresa's reality check, is to tackle the beast, well, not the beast in the room, but the elephant. It's prettier, and this elephant is the government. We can call it British because possibly the majority of people in this virtual room are from Britain or have links with Britain. But unfortunately, or that's the way it is. Other governments too are dissuading students from engaging in humanities, education. And languages are at the core of the humanities education. So how do we articulate the need for modern language education to a government that seems to be reluctant to listen? I've been following Gianfranco for several years now on Twitter, and I personally also responded to the quick consultation, the shock and awe approach that is typical of some governments at the moment. So the consultation on the GCSE reforms, for instance, and I discovered in horror that one of the words that my daughter should learn in French is spreadsheet, because that appears in the high frequency words that this government, the government department that was responsible for that thought it was a key word that a 12-year-old should know in French, in German, and any other language, and so on. So what can we do to make them listen? Because once we crack them, it's easy. I'm optimistic there.
Well, bless you, Daniela, but I've kind of reached the point where why do I want them to listen anymore?
Well, because they own the purse.
No. We own the purse.
Well,
we give them the money in the first place.
That's true. So
we own the purse.
So how do we envisage? How do we create a bottom-up approach to school policy?
We've had an all-party parliamentary group on languages. It's still there working away. Baroness Cousins working her little bottom off and doing a lot of great work for languages.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
We've had Speak to the Future. We've had Roots into Languages. Language Policy UK was a hashtag that we worked on over the Brexit time to point out just what we will lose. I think we really need to get behind the supposed Brexit benefits that we haven't had, and we make sure that one of those Brexit benefits, because when I was campaigning with UCML against Brexit, one of the things that was that I literally got trolled about was that Erasmus won't be affected. Erasmus will still be here. It isn't. It is affected. Why are we not pointing that out? we need to kick back. We need to show people, because the general public know nothing of this. When I go to Warwick and do my sort of speech on open days, as I've done over many years, I talk to parents and young students who are desperate to come to Warwick because it is a cosmopolitan environment. They know their students will do well because they will continue their language learning as part of their degree. Even those who are not linguists will continue their language learning, and that will put them in good stead. There's a section of the public that know and understand that. And we need to galvanize them again, because they are on our side. We've seen, I think, lots and lots of examples of the government doing U-turns when the things aren't going their way.
Thank you. I can see Gianfranco's hand from Malaysia.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'm quite positive for a reason, because I'm Italian and I'm familiar with Giambattista Vico, you know, and unfortunately there are moments in history which repeat themselves. If you look at the last century, beginning of the century, we had a lot of nationalism, a lot of country entrenched in their own culture, very insular, and you can see now, of course, with Brexit, you can see Boris Johnson now going in, you know, in bed with Biden and with Morrison, all this, you know, it's happening, and I think the next government will be a different government, because there'll be a reaction to the current, and let's face it, it's always top down. I mean, it's in every country I've ever lived, it's always top down. What is, you know, it's funny, because if you asked me that question when I was more naive, I would have said, Daniela, we show them research to prove. But actually you don't, because look at the way they twisted research with this new National Center of Excellence. So unfortunately, I am with Teresa in here. It's top down, and unless one has political muscles backing them up, or huge names, I guess, and that's what possibly could work, you know, Oxford, Cambridge, the big universities sticking together and saying no, possibly, that could be one option, but they're never going to do it because they'll always thrive anyway. So unfortunately, I think there's no way to articulate. It's just the nature of the beast everywhere, Italy, France.
I just want at least a positive
Yes,
Emma, please.
I always say positive things. But I think just on the back of, I mean, some of the things that Teresa was saying, you know, are very positive, right? You know, there is the APPG, which is working really hard. And I think behind the scenes, there are a number of groups on the national level who have come together to represent languages kind of more broadly. And I absolutely agree with Teresa about the M. You know, it's what's in a name. But if anyone can suggest a new acronym for UCML, I'd be very happy. One of the things that we did recently was to put out a joint statement with the Classical Association following the announcement of the DFE Latin excellence, the kind of injection of cash into that, which I think caused a huge amount of controversy and, you know, a bit of division in the languages community, you know, ancient languages pitted against modern languages. And I just think that kind of thing is incredibly unhelpful, you know, and we need to work together as a community. And if we can get investment in Latin, we can get investment in Mandarin, we can get investment in other languages. And I think, you know, it is difficult to remain positive, but I think it's that positivity that's going to get us the investment. So, you know, that's what I would say. Also, just to mention, actually, the Strategic Committee for Languages in the UK, which has a number of associations, and I've put, slightly annoyingly, I've thrown lots of links in the chat to various reports. Not necessarily UCML reports, but there's one which is, if you haven't looked at it, which is very useful, which is the towards a national languages strategy report from 2020, which I think kind of shows some ways that we can come together and strategize about this. Okay, I will shut
Emma,
up.
don't forget that the INSELP got 5 million from the government. Try and beat that.
Yes,
and they've dictated the way languages are going to teach. Now they're even going to the extent of even dictating what primary have to teach. And because it all starts in primary, unless we sort out, the recruitment is done when these kids are young. That's where you imprint them, you know, to love languages, not in year 9. You know, a lot of schools make this mistake of trying to persuade kids to continue to GCSE way too late in year 9, whereas you really should start when they're very young. And unfortunately, when you've got £5 million invested in a strategy which is completely top down, dictated by the government, teaching languages like we used to teach them 40, 50 years ago with, you know,
it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I've been talking to Arlen Holmes Henderson, who's one of the people who was working with Classics for All. You know, I think has been working for a very long time to secure that investment from DFE. So yeah, I think there's kind of two sides to it. But if we can secure investment, let's just try and get lots more.
Yes, absolutely.
In the right places.
Can I follow on with this thread of the conversation? Teresa mentioned, you know, that there is a section of the British public and of publics elsewhere in other countries, in other language and national constituencies that understand almost intuitively why languages matter and why one should study languages at university and primary, secondary education and so on. However, we have an issue with parts of our national communities that are disenfranchised, that are not interested. And indeed, if you have been attending Becky Murada's Taylor conversation, the workshop earlier on today, you know, not many, well, there is an interesting correlation between universities that offer language degrees and a lower number of students that are on Polar Q1, so students who are not coming from affluent or comfortable backgrounds. So the question is, how do we ensure that diversity and real democratic inclusion is at the core of a future-proof language strategy that encompasses primary to, you know, and university education? How do we really shake this idea that languages are just for an elite and that can only be studied at university level in an elite university?
Yeah, I think this is something that really worries me, and then I see it worries other panelists as well. And I have to think, well, it has to start at the grassroots level. How do I, as a tutor, ensure that the reading list for my course doesn't involve buying 3 £20 course books? You know, how do I make sure that my students don't have to sell the family jewels in order to participate? And that's where open education and open educational resources, I think, are very, very important. I think we need to engage as a practitioner community in reviewing what we teach and how we teach it, and the support resources that are required. Even with the pivot online, we just made assumptions that people had devices and they had sufficient internet access where they were in order to join. And of course, that wasn't the case. And of course, that meant students were disadvantaged. And I don't think many of them actually got very much of a sympathetic ear under that sort of emergency situation. So I think we have to do a reality check. There is now lots and lots of great research published that shows exactly how people have suffered under the pandemic. We have to read it, we have to engage with it, and we have to think about it as practitioners. And then we have to ask our managers, you know, to make sure that they look at this as a priority. Because very often the students will select those courses, and I've been listening to Elena talk earlier in her course about learner autonomy. Students respect the time we put into understanding their needs.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm keen to hear Federico and then Ana, and then we will have to wrap it up. Thank you. Yeah. Federico first and then Ana.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for such a very interesting, engaging discussion. Actually,
Federico.
I would like to have more time, you know, to discuss with our colleagues, you know, today, but we will have. I hope we can maybe organize another sort of event, because I think there's so much to say about this. About inclusion, yeah, just a few points. I totally agree with Teresa. So we need to reflect as a community of practice. We also need to, I think, better know the background of our students, and also the background of our communities, but also, as Teresa said, what the pandemic, all these kind of, how could I say, turning point, not just in history, but, in our social life, have affected, the way in which we work with our students, but also the way in which languages or other cultures are seen, in society. And just to give you an example, last year we discussed at UCML, I was a representative for linguistics at UCML, that, in the UK, as in many other countries, information about COVID was not translated into other languages. So the government, and also at community level, assumed, people assumed that everybody could understand English, even if, this information was not available, and also the information was vital for them to survive, in some cases. But yeah, that, for instance, could have been an amazing way of using languages, our departments, our critical mass, and also our students, to engage with the communities and provide the communities with translations, with that kind of engagement. So let's show the society that we are not just functional to the economy, to the system, but that we are providing sort of citizenship to people, from our students to the local communities. And that was an amazing example, the pandemic, and how can modern languages, I don't use modern languages, other cultures, our approach, help people.
I think it's gone. Anyway,
yeah,
Teresa has put in the chat the Open COVID for Ed pledge. Anna, would you like to come in?
Yes, I was actually just going to echo what, as it happens, what Elizabeth Koningshöl has put in the chat, that we have so many students with heritage languages, and these heritage languages are often not rewarded. The knowledge that they've gained is not rewarded in schools or indeed in university. And I remember we had a group of students who we invited to come to university. These are students often from disadvantaged backgrounds who wouldn't usually think of going to university, and we want to make them feel more comfortable. And we invite them, and we did an Arabic lesson with them. And it was the first time for a number of the students there who speak Arabic at home that they thought that Arabic could be a subject that was valued, that deserved being studied. And that's a message that we really need to combat. And if we have students coming to our schools at whatever level with another language, we need to build on that and not just say, oh, but it's English and it's only English that we use in our classrooms. And if we value languages that way from the earliest level, then the students will feel much more like they can contribute. From a very personal point of view, I have a niece who speaks both Dutch and German as a mother tongue, came to school in England, and was made to feel that she would be wrong, she would be cheating if she did an A-level in either German or Dutch, because that's her native language. So how dare she get a qualification in the native language? No one says to an English student, don't get an A-level in English.
It's a very powerful point, Anna. Thank you. I think there are many parents around this room, virtual or otherwise, that feel the same way. It's actually quite a strong point.
And yet, not so long ago, we very nearly lost Polish and Turkish as qualifications at all. These sorts of things are.
Anyway, we are quite. Well, I think we are a little bit late, not terribly late, but when you're fun, you have fun, time flies fast. And I hope one of the wonderful team that has been putting this conference together is saving the chat, because there are valuable resources that we may want to share in an email, thanking everybody, because there is a lot that perhaps we may want to peruse in more, quiet times and continue our own research and advocacy using those resources. So thank you very, very much to all the panelists. I'm sorry to have lost Federico, but clearly he had some Wi-Fi issues.
I can hear an echo somewhere. He must be there.